welcome to the February 7th meeting of the Tupelo Planning Committee. Please take a moment to silence your cell phone at this time. Please rise for the invocation by Bentley Nolan and the Pledge of Allegiance by Lindsay Lee.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for this night you've given us to come together. We thank you for the responsibility to preside over the city of Tupelo, and just ask for your guidance and wisdom as we try to make the decisions to the best of our ability, Lord. We thank you so much for the blessings of community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you'd face the flag, please. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll make you seated. The Tupelo Planning Committee is a volunteer group appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We receive no compensation for this as we do it as community service. We spend a lot of time and our own funds studying and researching the applications and visiting the sites that are on our agenda each month. We ask that you remember that we do not take our positions on any application lightly. Our decisions are based on facts as they are presented and with regard to the regulations set forth in the development code. At this time, I would like to ask the staff and committee members to introduce themselves, starting with the staff, and remember to speak into the microphone.
Russ Wilson, Zoning Administrator.
Tanner Newman, Director of Development Services.
Mark Williams. Bentley Nolan.
Pam Haddon acting as chair.
Lindsay Leak.
Leslie Mart.
Patty Thompson.
Gus Hildenbrand.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I make a motion that we accept.
Second.
Thank you. It has been motioned by Leslie Mart and seconded by Lindsay Lee. If y'all will raise your right hand to approve. Okay. All right. I'll approve. We'll have a report on council actions. Ms. Wilson, do you have anything to report on the council actions from our last meeting?
Yes, that was considered by the council in all items. I think that was the item on the Tupelo Children's Mansion. They did approve this committee's recommendation.
Thank you. We do have some old business to take care of first tonight. And that is the Flex 21-07 flexible use application to allow installation of a 156-foot monopole cellular tower at the rear of the property located directly behind Anytime Fitness, 2421 West Main Street, and located in an MUCC, the Mixed-Use Commercial Corridor Zoning District. This was withdrawn by the applicant, so no further action is required. We are ready now for the new business portion of our meeting. The new business is a rezoning application by Butler Park LLC requesting to rezone approximately 55 acres in a mixed-use residential zoning district to agricultural open zoning district. The subject property is located just south of and connecting to Butler Park Subdivision Phase 1, which is west of Coley Road and south of Butler Road, in order to develop larger homes on larger lots than the current zoning district allows. Mr. Wilson, do you have anything to?
Yes, just recently, I guess I feel kind of, I wanted to say also that Pat Faulkner, our previous director, I think may be with us in spirit. I had a picture of him in my, in my work pad, but we went to a seminar in Oxford a few weeks ago, and it was concerning rezonings. Rezonings are a bigger issue than zonings are, because once the comprehensive plan is done, the comprehensive zoning map is done, it's pretty much there. But things change over time. Our comprehensive plan was developed and released in 2008. We're about at the end of the life expectancy of 2025, the comprehensive plan. So we'll be rebooting that. But this, if you notice in the staff recommendation, there was no recommendation There are some complex issues at work here on both sides. Could be legal issues, and then there are four criteria that are in your packet that are used to determine the appropriateness of a zoning. And that is the issue, and the only issue that is before us tonight is if this is an appropriate rezoning of the property at this location at this time. So just wanted to mention that. I know that there were some issues. There have been some drainage issues in the surrounding areas there. I talked to our city engineer today, and he had mentioned that he has gotten several calls about that and has made a commitment to contact those people about those drainage issues. But they're not really related to this issue here, but they are related to an issue in that portion of West Tupelo. There is a stream that runs to the west of this property, and this property does have a lake on it, and water flows wherever it is allowed to. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that before we got into it.
Okay, thank you. So would the applicant please come to the podium and state your name and address and present your case to the committee?
Jason Warren, 1006 Charleston Boulevard in Tupelo. So, just kind of let y'all know what we want to do?
Yes.
Okay. So, this would be a second phase of Butler Park subdivision. We started the first phase, I guess, probably getting close to 2 years ago now. 34 lots. Those are small lots. We've sold about 20 of those lots so far, so we've got about 14 left. And then we've got the second phase, which is this back 55 acres. There's a lake in the middle of it. Randy Hapcock with ESI and I spent about 6 months studying this property and trying to figure out the best use for it. There is a lake in the middle. There's some low-lying area, I guess, to the west of the property that we've had to kind of navigate around. So our proposal would be roughly 2 to 4 acre size lots, with the exception of one 10-acre lot, which is the lot 5, and that's the one that lies behind the lake. There's some low land there behind the levee. It elevates back up to a really nice building spot in the back corner, but just makes it a little bit hard to work around that behind that levee. So he and I feel like this is the best use for this property.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant from the committee?
Why did you opt to go to an OA? AO, excuse me, sorry. Why? What's your thinking to do that?
I guess for the size lots is what would be the result of us needing that zoning. Is that the right word to say, I guess? But from what it currently is.
Did you, Jason, did you lay it out for what would be LDR, the low-density residential? Actually goes up to 2 acres, and it might be that might change, might be a little higher there, but if you take the lake out of the lots and that low land, you could do it with 2 acre lots. And I really, and I think most of the committee would like to see it laid out with that in mind too, but
we played around with lots of different scenarios with trying to make the streets work right and make it look aesthetically pleasing, and the way we currently got it, we felt like was the best, again, the best use for it and the best layout to make the lots make sense and not be odd-shaped and just not pleasing aesthetically as you drive through.
well, of course, that's fine right now, and that may happen now, but in the future, if that's a zoned agriculture open, there are a lot of things that could happen in there. That 10-acre lot could become a trailer park, and other things that could happen. Because once it's zoned that, and once there's something built on it, then it stays that way, and there are a lot of
of future problems that might happen with the AO rate.
Yep, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and of course, this would be a covenanted parcel of land that would have to be platted and approved by the city for a subdivision. So we're not asking for any other use other than a subdivision use. So once it's, I would think, adopted by the city as a subdivision, it's got to be a residential subdivision. So our intent would never be to do anything other than that.
Well, but the city doesn't press covenants. They don't have it's up to the neighborhood to do that. They only take part in the zoning, and the zoning would be AO. And that means that anything that was allowed in AO would be allowed on that if it was rezoned to that, even in the future.
So even if it's a platted subdivision and that's what's approved by the city, then that's the approved usage of the property, correct?
The city is approving the subdivision of the property, and since there is, at this point, no development plan that is signed and holding you to that development plan, then theoretically, someone could purchase that 10.5 acre lot and then develop it. But one thing that I found in going through this, that subdivision is a use by flexibility, so it would have to come back before this committee as an application.
And we're only asking that you adopt this plan that we are proposing, not anything else. And so if we got the go-ahead to move forward with this plan, that's what would be submitted as a subdivision for the city.
The challenge on that is tomorrow, is if the city were to accept that. My understanding is that once it's already out of the, it's platted as a lot in an AO zone, so someone theoretically could come in and apply for any of the uses by right or any of the uses by compatibility, which are in-house hearings. And then there are uses by flexibility that could be applied for. And whether this committee would approve that or not is also a theoretical possibility. So therefore, there's a concern, I think, just through that AO zoning. And Ben Logan, our city attorney, I believe is here if we need any clarification on any of those issues or not. So I think that's the concern that Mr. Hildenbrand is expressing. Not that you're not going to do it, but you sell property, and if it's owned something, or restrictive covenants are only if the neighbors complain about it and are willing to take it to court and support a legal battle. And my experience over the years has been that most neighbors won't sue their neighbors when they do it. If somebody comes in, it's not from around here and does it, they might do that, but it's going to cost them a lot of money probably.
Yeah, Jason, I don't think anybody on the committee has we see what you're trying to accomplish and want to try to make that feasible. I guess, what goes with the AO is there's other properties, as you're aware, that are not developed there. And this would be a spot zoning that we allow this to go AO. Then some others may say, well, we'd like to have that AO as well. And then what could happen in the agricultural open with their intended use down the road, and especially now with the approval of medical marijuana, and maybe Ben can address that, what could happen, and if we go AO or some others applied for AO and that was approved, what would the impact of medical marijuana now put on anything in that area or any area that the city has that's designated AO?
And if you see there, I guess what Mr. Williams was talking about is this LDR is to the left, MDR is to the south, and the MDR, to the north there. So a change to AO, I think when you said spot zoning, is just, it's not a gradual move to something. And agricultural open in the development code and also in the comprehensive plan is sort of a holding pattern for flood-prone areas as well as areas that just are currently agricultural. They kind of stayed that way, and probably about 20%, as you know, about 20% of Tupelo is underwater at some point. We've got a lot of flooded areas coming in, and that's what a lot of the AO zoning is. It just can't be used for anything else.
So I do have a question. Have you guys researched doing LDR and potentially coming to us with variance on that LDR? Because again, the heartburn here being a spot zoning change that's not anywhere else around that area, and this AO designation opens the door up for a multitude of things that I cannot imagine the surrounding neighbors would approve of. You know, things such as trailer parks are in there. We have animal shelters, airports even, you could do that. Broadcasting, RV parks, I mean, the list just goes on. And so certainly with all of the other neighbors and the development going on, we support what you guys are trying to do, second phase of that development. I'd much rather see researching LDR, potential variance on that side, rather than opening it up for a multitude of potentials. We understand right now, today, you guys have this planned, but what happens if the market tanks, property sits there, you guys abandon that subdivision, then it can become whatever somebody else who buys that land from.
And I understand what you're saying. You know, we have a really huge investment in Butler Park Phase 1 that, you know, has $500,000 houses all through it. And this would be a large investment for Butler Park Phase 2. So I can assure you, if we didn't feel super comfortable with it, we would not be proposing this scenario. We have a list of people who would love for us to have this available, like it's drawn today, that are ready and willing to buy these lots. We would be certainly open to a stipulation, if that were to work, you know, that it could be only used for this purpose and only this purpose. And if we got the go-ahead, we would be moving full force ahead with getting this going, you know, as soon as possible. So this is not going to be a delayed start. We want to make this happen while we've got a good market and, make it a success, which, again, I can assure you we wouldn't spend the money to put the infrastructure in if we weren't sure that it would be a success. And that's what we do every day.
Jason, I understand ESI helped lay out your proposal. Do you have anyone representing ESI here that could offer the committee some thought behind the layout that you have proposed?
Yes, Randy's here.
Randy Hathcock with Engineering Solutions. And Jason's right, we worked a long time working on this. You mentioned some floodplain areas. You guys have seen this. We left one with Pat. I think he may have got one of those to you guys.
I don't believe that got into the packet. Have y'all seen that?
I've not seen that one, but I've seen some variations of that would still, I think, represent that fairly.
Okay. All it is a quadrangle map, and the blue lines you see on it are the creeks. And there's a floodplain along the creek. Can't do anything with it. And it's, building up on the ridge is the only opportunity we've got up there to be able to use it. If we go back to smaller lots, you still can't use that property down there. Property behind the levee. There's several acres down there. It's unbuildable. You can't build it. So that's kind of why the bigger lots are down there around the wet areas. And most of them are up on the hill where we could do it, around 2 acres. Some of them 3 acres. Of course, the lake takes out part of the buildable area. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That's one of the main reasons why the lots are like they are. Once you get down to the low areas, you got to have some buildable area, and you're just not in, any along the creeks.
Okay, so I'll ask the question again to you.
Yeah.
Did you explore doing LDR? Because what we're here today is to look at the rezoning. We are not looking at your subdivision in any capacity. We are strictly looking at the rezoning.
Is there another, instead of AO, is there something else this might fit under?
LDR,
LDR
low
with
density.
some variance.
Yeah, with some variance.
Right, which would
Because
then,
the LDR strictly like Butler Phase 1 doesn't work.
No,
Well,
that's
the-
MDR.
Yeah, that's medium
That's
lot
medium,
in
yeah.
the,
yep,
Yeah, the LDR, you gotta do a lot, it's up to
Yeah.
2 acres.
Well, and it may be that needs to be larger, low density residential, could be larger lots, but,
And trying to leave out the area without selling it below the lake and where the lake is, I mean, what are you gonna do with that
well,
property?
one thing that concerns me too is who's gonna take care of that lake? You got 7 lots that have part of that lake. Who's gonna take care of the lake?
I agree. Now, I haven't talked, Jason hadn't addressed it, maybe I'm part of the homeowner association there that would
So
be
we
responsible for that.
we did another.
step forward, please.
We, several years ago, at the end of Butler and Chesterville, there at the corner, there was 70-something acres there that we, it's in the city limits, that we made into 4 lots on Butler, 3 lots on Chesterville. 3 lots on Chesterville, 2 were 10 acres, 1 was 6 acres. The 4 lots on Butler were all between 5 and 7 acres. There was a lake in the middle of that too, and part of our covenants said that each property owner, that their property is connected into the lake, were responsible for the upkeep of that lake. So we did have covenants around that, which would be the same situation here.
But you have 7 lots that have a part of that lake, and if a couple of them decide they don't want to keep up the lake, then you have problems then, and that means there's lawsuits or whatever in there, and it usually works better if the subdivision has the lake and the lots go up to the lake front. I mean, just to and the subdivision that takes care of it. In other words, they take care of the lake, and they could do the same thing with your behind the dam and whatever. That could be used as a park, whatever that, it's Spring Lake. The lots don't take care of the lake out there. The lake is taken care of by it's part of the association. It's taken care of by the association. And so, it just, well, it means that you got 7 people that have to agree on what that lake's how that lake is gonna be taken care of if you do it as part of the lot. If you do it as just they're up to the edge of the shoreline, then the association takes care of the lake, and they have the control over what happens with the lake. So it's just, it's a concern on that maybe and that's the problem. Everything looks good now, Jason, everything looks good with yours, but what's it gonna look like 10 years from now and on down, and that's what we're thinking about, so.
But I guess anything could happen in 10 years or 15 years with the homeowners association or
Yeah.
anybody that would be taking care of the lake, whether they're the homeowner or the association. That was hard to predict that for sure. But I think with these size lots and what they're going to cost, you're certainly going to have, folks who are going to build large homes here, larger homes that are going to be, nice. And so I can't imagine that somebody would pay that kind of money for a lot and not keep it up.
Happens in Spring Lake.
Yeah, and it could happen anywhere, for sure.
Are there any other questions from the committee to the applicant? Thank you. You may be seated. We will now open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here to speak for or against the application? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us your comments or concerns.
Sorry, I'm a little short.
That's okay. Yes.
Pull the mic down a little.
State your name and address.
I was afraid it would squeal if I touched it. My name is Jennifer Powell. I live at 1276 Roanoke. Therefore, I'm very well aware of the Butler Park subdivision and the surrounding locations. I understand that this is not a time to bring up bad issues. However, I am one of the people that Mr. Wilson was talking about with the flooding issue at my home that is quite severe. And when we first, sorry, I'm a little nervous. When I first started looking for a house in Tupelo, I used Mr. Warren's business and one of his agents to purchase my home. I was informed then that nothing was going on in the property behind us, that it had been sitting there for a while, not to worry about anything. It would probably be years down the road before anything happened to it. The day I moved in the pouring down rain with a van backed up to my garage, his attorney banged on my door to the point, and I'm not saying Mr. Warren's attorney. I don't know if Mr. Warren was even involved in it at that point. But his attorney banged on my door and rang my doorbell until I stopped what I was doing to come and open the door. He handed me a packet and said that they were about to come to get this approved, and if I didn't sign off on my approval and send it back to him, he was going to sue me. That took place in the span of a month. Okay? I have been fighting ever since the subdivision went in. My backyard is flooded. It remains flooded. I have spoken with the city. Mr. Bonds has been out multiple times. I will see Mr. Bond again next week. I have an $11,000 cedar fence I put up that is sitting in water. I have a shed that is now leaning and tilting, and the skirting around it is rotted. I have reached out to Mr. Warren's office. He did not call me back. I reached out to him before when the burn first went in, and he did talk to me. I'm assuming, because Jason is a very nice person, he and I get along well, I'm assuming possibly the messages didn't get to him. However, the 4 houses at the end of the street continue to stand in water, and we were assured when the subdivision was approved that every step would be taken to ensure that our property was not detrimentally affected by that subdivision. Right now, I'm looking at 1/3 of my yard is underwater. Part of my yard is nothing but a bog. My dog cannot go out in the backyard without being filthy. And she's a short dog, so she's going to see. My next door neighbors are having the same problem on both sides of me. One neighbor who couldn't be here tonight had to put up a temporary fence to keep their dog out of portions of their backyard. I have tons of pictures I'll be glad to show y'all. But what I really want to say is they're saying they're not going to sell this property, that it's going to be a residential area. They won't do anything if nothing happens. If the market is fine, nothing's going to happen. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. And I right now could not sell my house if I wanted to because of Butler Park. And personally, I'm here to respectfully ask you to either decline their request or put this vote on hold until they can get phase 1 fixed. And furthermore, we were told all of the lots were sold at Butler Park. He just told us only 20 of them were sold, 14 more. That's very, very, very close to a little over half. So I used to work in commercial and residential real estate in Mobile, and I know in order to get loan approval, you've got to have a lot more than that sold to get a loan. So either the bank was misled, we were misled, or people backed out of their contracts. I don't know what happened. But something needs to be done before they are allowed to do that again. And if they're going to put that subdivision down the other side of our houses, and we're already flooding, can you imagine what's going to happen? And furthermore, the houses in Butler Park are built up so high that their foundations can be seen over my privacy fence in my backyard. And those houses butt right up against my back. I mean, they are as far back on the property line as they can get. They put a berm in for the city, and that only caused more flooding. So we're at our wits' end. And we're here hoping that if we can get this stopped, somebody might light a fire and get us a panel. So I apologize. I know that that's not, we're not here to talk about those sorts of things, but I don't trust that if that property gets zoned AO and the market crashes, that we don't have all sorts of things put up next to our property and our property value plummet, because I can't count on them to fix the problems they have now.
Just for informational purposes, can you show us on the screen where your properties are located?
Okay, so this is Butler Park. This house with the pool, that's my house. And it's already affecting the decking around my pool, the water is already cracking the decking around my pool. This is my other neighbor. She can't use her backyard. And this is my neighbor who's not here tonight. She can't use her backyard. And then Ricky is on the next side.
Great, thank you so much, appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I spoke with our city engineer, Mr. Bonds, this afternoon. He spoke with Ms. Powell today and has planning to see her hopefully by the end of the week. He wanted to be here tonight, but he didn't want this meeting to be about those other issues. He just said that, if we needed him, he could fill us in on that. But there still is a problem there, and there's holding water in the berm. There needs to be a plan of getting the water off of the property down into here, into the normal drainage that is there. And it's just has not occurred properly. But the city engineer is aware of it, and as soon as he gets back in town, we'll be back in touch with you. And I think we empathize with you. That's always a problem. Some of the water was not draining. It is just sitting there. So it was kind of creating a pond on your side without any way to really go out. So please bear with him. He has your best interests at heart and can empathize with you on that. So we hope to get that issue solved for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else to speak for or against?
Ricky Kimbrell, 1318 Roanoke. I'm the, I guess the fourth house from the end. Everything she said is, we do have the water problem. Mine will be short and sweet. I have a lawn service, and these are 2 or 3 of these yards I keep up, and not counting mine. And as far as Jennifer's yard, when I first started doing it 2 years ago, I could mow to the back corner of her shed. To give you an idea, now if that flag was her shed, I couldn't get but this close to it. Pat's yard, alongside the fence that splits her property and Jennifer's, it stays wet. We can't even mow it. We have to stay about 4 foot off the fence. Now, do I think Mr. Robertson and Mr. Warren did that on purpose? No. I don't think there was no. It tended to be that way. I don't know if it was the guy that built the berm or what, but the problem's there. Nobody's done anything about it. And it's been that way for a while now. So, but yeah, we do have water problems, and poor Jennifer and Pat seem to get the gist of it. It's almost like the berm was built that way or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, I kind of agree with her. I think you need to get one problem fixed before you create another one.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We actually
Okay,
purchased.
state your name and address.
Jalidian Westbrooks. We stay at 1256 Roanoke. And we actually stay at the end. So where they're planning on building, and where they've built, We're like sitting right there. Let me point it out to you. Right here in the code. Our fence is underwater, maybe about 7 inches. It's a brand new fence. And we're just pretty much having the same problem. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the floor? Yeah, yes.
I just wanted to just respond to Jennifer especially. She's called me one time, which I returned her call, and we spoke about, I don't know if that was before or after the berm. I know exactly where she lives. How long have you been in your house, Jennifer? How many years?
3 years.
3 years. So when she moved into this house, I don't even know that we were contemplating doing this. So I'm not really sure how the attorney came to your house when you moved in, because I don't even think we'd started the process,
Well,
but.
that's why I said, and I hate to interrupt, that's why I said, I don't know if you were involved at that point or not.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Somebody with American family or something.
Okay, if it was American family, I don't think that
I'm
has
sorry.
anything to do with
Please,
me. But-
please address your comments to
Okay,
the
sorry.
committee.
So, yeah, I don't know anything
Okay.
about an attorney and all of that. Jennifer, I've only had one call from her, which I returned. I don't know anything about any other calls, because I would have certainly returned them. And I think I have a good reputation in this area as far as doing what I say I'm going to do. We discussed the berm there in Phase 1, which was what the city required us to do in Phase 1, and we did exactly what we were asked to do. I know Mr. Bonds has been out there to inspect that. I actually owned a house on Roanoke at one point, and Scott Davis owned the house next door. That was way before any of this development was in Phase 1. Water back then stood in those backyards. Scott Davis and I went together and put a French drain in out to the street between the two houses, because it pooled, and when it would rain, it would be, that deep in water back there. So I'm not saying that they don't have water problems, but there were water problems there long before this development ever started. Whether they changed or not, I don't know, but I do know they were there before, because I know we had to spend money to put a French drain in to get the water from the backyard when it rained, because it would be like a lake back there. So I think that's always been a problem. We did exactly what the city required us to do to put in the berm. I'm out there all the time and see, the houses. I've not seen any lake waters like they're describing. I'm not saying they're not telling the truth, but I've not seen anything different than there's ever been. This berm goes all the way down, and I would think that it should be better than before, not worse. So, other than that, Phase 2, again, has nothing to do with Phase 1, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. But I can assure everybody on Roanoke that the business that we are in, Butler Park is doing nothing but helping the values on Roanoke and Orleans Place. I can assure you. Those properties are selling for $160 to $70 a square foot, which can only do good things for Roanoke and Orleans Place and all of Tupelo. That particular subdivision is bringing more per square foot than any neighborhood in Tupelo. So we're only doing good things. We only want the best for Tupelo. We only want the best for that development. You can go look on the sign out front. There's a sign in front of the subdivision, shows exactly which lots are sold. I don't have any idea who told who that all the lots were sold, because they're not. But you can go look exactly and see which ones are sold and which ones are available. So, they're there. There's more for sale. There's demand. There's demand for what we're proposing tonight. This back Phase 2 property will only bring wonderful dollars in for the city of Tupelo. So, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further comments or concerns from the public, we will now close. Yes. I'm sorry, once you've been here once, we don't,
I just want to hand y'all these, he would like to speak to you. And just a reminder that.
If you'd like
as
to
Ricky
give those to
said-
me, I'll pass them out.
As Ricky stated, that the flooding has started since my house has not been underwater. I did not have trouble for a year and a half after.
You don't want these, or you want me to email them to you?
you can pass them.
Whatever it is. Okay.
I think they're all different. Yeah,
They're
just
different.
take one as an example.
Good evening.
Hello.
Your
That's my wife's.
your name and
State your
address.
name and your address.
Dante Smith, 1256 Roanoke. We recently moved in, like 6 months ago, and, it was dry when we moved, so when we moved in, we bought a fence, $16,000 fence, and, rain came in, and that's when we discovered about the flood. And so recently, we got a contractor out to, survey it, and that's what he wanted to do, put a French drain in the backyard. But it's so much water in coming from all the houses in the back, it's like flooded in the front of our house. I done called the city numerous of times about it need to be a drain or whatever. And my question is, if we put a French drain up, like where is the water going, Because it's water in our front yard. When it rained like 3 or 4 days, it just like flooded. We can't even walk out our driveway to the street without jumping over
Yes.
tons of water. So I just want to know about like where, the French drain gonna lead the water to.
I think Mr. Bonds will be able to answer those questions, and I think the water is going up against the berm and doesn't have a clear path to the natural tributary down there, is what he had said. So he's planning on coming out and trying to talk to everybody there or something, but is trying to address that issue. But thank you. I've noted your name and
Yes, sir.
address. We'll
All right.
pass that along. Thank you.
Could I
Yes.
ask one question?
Yes. State your name and address.
Larry Williams, 849 Jones. We're not on the upper end, we're on the Jones Drive coming in from the other side, where it dead ends into that property. Our concern is not opening that end of the street. If they're coming in the upper north end, that's fine. We don't have a problem.
That's something that we had looked at in the staff reviewing just traffic throughout there and what the changes it would make, whether it even be allowed. But I'll note that concern in a minute.
They're not here tonight, but the whole group have talked, and they are concerned about that on Jones.
Okay. I know the property. We
Thank you.
looked at that. It just dead ends right there at the property line.
Dead ends on the south end.
And you'd like it to stay that way?
We like the dead end.
Says Jones right there.
Is there anyone else? If not, this now closes the public portion of this application, and we are now open for committee discussion. And I just want to remind everyone that our purpose tonight is just to decide whether or not to allow rezoning from a medium-density residential zone to an agricultural open zone. So at this time, we can have committee discussion.
So maybe Ben or Tanner can answer these questions. So I am highly against an AO because of so many other things that could go in on that property. We just don't know what the future holds. We never do. So if they did go in the direction of an LDR, can we work with them for variances to allow those larger lots? Do we have that option?
Yes, under LDR, internally, we could issue up to a 30% variance, which would hypothetically give you a 2.6 acre lot. And then the planning committee has the ability to issue anything over a 30% variance.
Okay. And maybe do something else where the lake maybe is taken out of those calculations? Is there some way that we could do that as well, so that they could keep those lots down within some?
I think that would certainly, decrease the size of the lot, and that's something that we would have to discuss with the developer, but I see no reason we could not do that.
Yeah. So good option.
Any additional discussion?
Comment on that.
Okay.
I'm Ben Logan, I'm city attorney. There are three different types of variances that we can look at, or two different types of variances. And one, administrative adjustment to the size of those lots. That would be with the subdivision plan. The developer of development services or the planner can grant a variance up to 15% as an administrative adjustment to the size of the lot. That would cover about half the lot out there. And then a compatibility variance takes a little bit more of a finding by the director, and certainly that can be appealed to the planning committee as an administrative decision. That takes care of all but about 3 lots. The planning committee would be charged with looking at the 10-acre lot, maybe the 3 and the 4 or 5 acre lot, maybe the 4 on the, I guess, the west side there. That would avoid the difficulty in that we mentioned that could be seen as spot zoning. We just had in a neighboring subdivision the change in the LDR from 1-acre lots to 2-acre lots. This gets most of it into LDR with those adjustments because of the findings that you'll have to make. There's parts of this property that cannot be developed into smaller lots. And I think that's why you have the 10-acre lot, because of the fall of the land in that area. The drainage issues are something that need to be addressed. And we have Mr. Bonds is looking at that, our city engineer, and working with the property owners in both of these subdivisions. We hope to come to a solution there. But if we want to get to yes, we need to go with that variance procedure on that as opposed to AO, because under the existing agricultural open uses that can go in there, it's not really the size of things, it's the uses that can go there. There's some things that you just don't want in that neighborhood. They certainly can be, or in that area, they certainly can be taken care of with restrictive covenants to an extent, but the city has a greater responsibility there. And as to all the neighborhoods, don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse, but the marijuana legislation that is coming up breaks these different facilities, medical marijuana facilities, down into different uses. We had planned on looking at the cultivation facilities as agricultural as opposed to commercial or something of that nature. As I understand it, many of the agricultural or grow facilities, cultivation facilities, will be co-located with the processing facilities, which pushes that into a commercial or light industrial type of use. And I'm not trying to scare everybody in that area, but that is something that we have to make sure that everything it works together. We need to avoid spot zoning, and we need to avoid zoning property in a primarily low-density residential area into a more use class of property. And I think we can get the yes on all fronts if there is those variances are presented, whether they be an administrative adjustment or a compatibility variance or a flexibility variance. And I would advise the planning committee to consider that, as well as the developer in considering doing that. Should not be, it may take us another 30 days or something of that nature to do that, but that would be a better solution all the way around.
Mr. Lowe, would the best way to get there be to withdraw this, deny this, or and start over on something?
Or table it.
And so that we don't have to have another public hearing, if we continue this public hearing.
We have a continuance possibility rather than a tabling it. It's similar to the same thing, but it's just a continuance to the next meeting where we pick up where we left off, but it's still active.
And in the meantime, the developer can submit a subdivision plan for review by Tanner in the Development Services Department to bring back to you with some recommendations for those administrative adjustments or those variances.
So this application is actually for a variance asking for AO.
Yes.
And you're saying that if we table it as a continuance, then they could actually change that verbiage to something else?
Well, the variance for an AO is basically a rezoning. Okay, a variance is to deal with dimensions of either front, side, lot size, house size, height of the house, things of that nature, as opposed to a change in the use of the zoning district. And so I think that we would be all right to continue the public hearing. If we need to put something else out, we don't need to close it off tonight. If we need to put another notice of that public hearing, I think we can do that in a manner that gets us back here within a reasonable amount of time for everybody involved.
I think we could do the notification in time that says that the continuance is something that I wasn't even aware of until I really have gotten into the development code recently and looking at the administrative process on this. But you can do a continuance up to 3 times and still keep the application active. And I think by putting some changes in there, it's just changing, if we need to do the notification to change the parameters of what we were doing, that the plan is going to be changed to LDR with restrictions, and the next meeting is such and such a date. I think we could do that, and it would serve the public interest in
You'd have an
doing it.
amended application for what you're asking.
Yeah.
Amended application.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is the developer could withdraw the application for AO and resubmit within this as an LDR, or we have to do that?
If he would need to amend his application for a variance to become an AO, which in essence right now is an application for rezoning. But if he were to file an amended variance, either a flexible or compatible variance for his subdivision that he's planning there, then we could keep this. It would be good to have the notice reissued, but we could keep this hearing open so that we wouldn't have to withdraw and start all over.
Ben, recognizing February is a short month, and do you feel that this could be done within any requirement? If there's a 30-day requirement, obviously February being a short month, our normal meeting would be on March the 7th. Is there any legality that would prevent that to push it into April?
It wouldn't be 30 days.
I believe the public notice on a public hearing on that for a rezoning thing is not 30 days. It's, I believe that it's 15.
Still would need to be
We'll work it out, get
resubmitted
it
as a
within
VAR.
45 days, 30 or 45 days, or any lesser time if allowed. We will need to probably reconvene, at least at the March 7th meeting, to deal with medical marijuana, at least the development code aspects of that. The legislation was effective upon its passage and signed and signature by the governor. That puts us at 90 days from passage before the State Health Department and the Mississippi Department of Revenue have to start acting on applications across the state for everything except for dispensaries and one other facility. They have 150 days for that. I know that with COVID that they were overwhelmed you know, and they didn't, and this is gonna be something that's effective statewide, and it's gonna be of a magnitude as COVID was as it developed. So we need to be, whether or not Mr. Palmer and the council vote to opt out, that's their prerogative, but in case they do not, we need to have a development code amendment that will be in line with what we'll be seeing if they do not opt out.
Okay,
So I have another question, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So this application that's before us tonight is a rezoning, as you pointed out, and the application clearly says RZ. And the property's already zoned LDR, if they come back,
No, it's
It's
MDR.
MDR.
it's
currently.
MDR, so it would still be a rezone to go from M to L.
Right.
Gotcha.
It would just be amending the application to change the
Okay,
zoning
that was my
request.
question, because
Yeah.
if it was already zoned LDR, then it would just be their subdivision to come before us then,
Yeah.
But
asking for the variance on the larger lots.
the other problem that's come up, though, is as an engineer, there needs to be a waterway there on the back of those lots to take that water, and it needs to come through this new property. This property that waterway is gonna have to come down there.
Mr.
That
Bond,
needs to be done.
Mr. Bonds and I talked about that this afternoon as part of that he was saying that it needed to be fixed. The water just didn't have any place to go. So it's probably going to have to come across the top, the northwest portion of that to get, if you notice where that's green, that's the floodway.
Yes.
So it needs to get across there and get away from the other properties. And then it's going to flood where it's going to flood. I think they're going to build that into their plan of development.
And I assume that it was LDR because everything else is LDR in that area, but
It's not LDR now,
It's
no. it's-
MDR south of there and MDR north of there, but it's LDR to the west, which wouldn't, due to the terrain issues and you could expand that zone over into it because it's LDR all around that. As a matter of fact, all of West Tupelo was anticipated to be LDR many years ago.
we'll fix it up, but that would be the best course of action, whether or not we have to renotice it or whatever. We'll do that as soon as, we can get those changed there. I think
Do we
that's
need to
clear
make
as
that in the
bad.
form of a
Yeah,
motion?
we'll have to make it.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
We need to make a motion to continue this pending
Continue.
changes from the developers
Right.
to change the
And
rezoning.
renotice if necessary.
And ma'am,
Renotice of the hearing if necessary.
renotice of the hearing.
Yes. Okay, so what I'm hearing is we would need a motion for a continuance in order to amend the request.
So moved.
Okay.
Okay, Bentley Nolan, so first,
Second it.
and Gus second. Okay, thank you.
Before we vote, do we need to get confirmation from the developer that he wishes to continue the application?
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mr. Warren?
I'm gonna have to do that.
It's either that or tomorrow.
Mr. Warren, is that acceptable? It is, yes. State your name.
Jonathan Robinson, 14440 Highway 23 North. All right, so yes, we would like to amend that as LDR with request of a variance to go over for these low-lying areas that cannot be built. So
Thank you.
I assume we can do it a twofold.
But you'll have to submit a subdivision plan with that on it. with those lots on it like that.
Right, but since we're battling time for the 30-day meeting, I guess we want to make sure that twofold is said.
Well,
Can I ask a question? So our other alternative would just be for you guys to deny this, basically?
Yes.
And then we would
You have to do something else.
start over with something different, correct?
Mr. Ward, I've been in this zoning capacity since June of last year, but I was 18 years on the planning committee here, and I will admit that there are some things that I'm learning that I wasn't aware of before. But one thing that we have tried to do over the years is make things developer-friendly. There are some things in the code that require us in a rezoning to ask for a development plan, something that is presented before the request is even asked for, so that we know all of these things that you do, that you want to do. So to have a plan of action, really, of what, the basics of what you're wanting to do is not unreasonable, but we're finding that sometimes when we skip our own rules in order to be kind of more friendly, that we create problems on down the road. And we don't want to do that if we can, because it's really not in your best interest long-term for us to miss any of those steps. So that's we'll be glad to work with you tirelessly in trying to come up with a plan that'll help develop this property, because there are some advantages to having 17 or 20 cars going out onto Butler Park rather than 85, which is what could be developed with MDR. So, and with the topographical, constraints there, this is also a Chickasaw review area, which there will need to be a Chickasaw review before. We really need to get that done ahead of time so that you don't run into any stumbling blocks that you're unaware of on that. And I'll take care of getting that process started for you also.
Yeah, Jason, just to be clear, if we denied your AO request, you couldn't present that for another year as an AO. It'd be a year you'd have to sit out on that, but if you were to agree to continuance, and I hear you are saying you would be agreeing to continuance and go LDR and a request for variance, then we could post the notice and we could continue on with the process.
Just kind of
And
need
also,
to.
even if we denied it, it would still go to council, and they could override us.
Yeah. The actual no or yes resides in the council.
Yes.
We make a suggestion to them, and then they have the process. They are the governing power of the city, so they have to make that final.
So really, either way, we're really kind of starting over in a city.
Yes.
In a sense, but I think more educated about what what we need to do in order to get a good plan together that works in the zoning process as well as for you. Is that?
So we still have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor to continuance.
Continuance.
And requesting the development plan or some, information at an appropriate time in order to consider that LER and how you're going to get there. Is that?
Revised plan, the revised verbiage, and a plat showing property layout, right? Yeah.
They would still have the option if they wanted to go before the city council, even if we approve this this continuance. So it would, they could still do that, and then we would give them the option of amending their.
Well, this doesn't go, this goes to the council as just a continuance on, so I don't think the council would make a decision until this committee makes a decision and a recommendation.
And also, just because they submit a plat of their proposed subdivision, they're not submitting for subdivision. So
Correct.
we're not voting on the subdivision. They would still need to come back to us
Right.
with the final details of that subdivision. Am I correct?
Correct.
It's strictly for informational purpose, so we can look at the rezoning to the LDR.
Now, there is a little bit of problem with the continuance, and we're still debating on the motion. If we pass that, then they they can't go to the council with anything until we make a recommendation.
Well, this committee has not made a recommendation yet.
Well,
It has
that's what I
decided to
say.
continue it pending further information provided from the.
Hang on,
denied
he may.
But if we denied it totally tonight, they could go to the next council meeting and submit their proposal to the council meeting. Now,
Yes,
that's the
if
difference.
You could,
in what-
yes.
Yes. Yes.
So I would like to withdraw my ask for to continue it. We
Okay.
would like a denial or an approval.
You're just
Thank you.
withdrawing.
Correct.
Wonderful.
No,
Oh, and you're not
No,
withdrawing your
He's asking
application.
for.
I'm withdrawing
no,
my variance.
He's withdrawing, yeah, he's
I would
withdrawing the
request
continuance.
either approval or denial
Yes,
of agriculture.
No continuance.
yes,
Okay.
right. Okay.
All right, so I'll second that we deny
No,
this.
Okay,
no, we have a motion on the floor. We've got to deny this motion first.
That's
He's
what you just
withdrawing.
said.
I'm withdrawing my original motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we deny this application for rezoning to AO.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie, and Gus. All right. So, all in favor, raise your right hand to deny. All opposed? Okay, we get it. All right, thank
So
you.
it's unanimous.
Yes, unanimous, yes, okay.
So what happens next? Could you,
The minutes of this meeting will be forwarded on to the city council, and the city council has the option to either affirm the decision of the committee and affirm the denial. They can overturn it at their prerogative, or they can send it back to the committee for further consideration.
what meeting would this be presented to the council?
As soon as I get the minutes together, more than likely the second meeting this month, possibly, if it can't get onto that agenda, it would be the first of the 1st of March.
Can you please at least notify us by email what meeting it's going to be presented to the council so that potentially if we wanted to
We could sit in.
we could sit in on that?
Okay.
So
I'd
that,
also note that just because you denied the AO request, that does not forbid Mr. Warren from resubmitting a request for LDR to this committee.
Right.
right,
Mhm. Right, it's not the same application. Same grant.
right.
Good point.
Thank you. All right, so thank you. The city council will review our decisions, and Mr. Wilson will report back their findings at the next meeting. Do we currently have any applications for the next meeting?
I can't think of any right now. Not that are coming before this committee. Do have a couple of compatibility hearings that are in-house, but we do have the March work session coming up.
Okay.
If I might, you think, Tanner, that it might be worth looking at reworking the LDR to raise that to 3 acres as a maximum on there? Because low-density residential could go up to 3 acres. 2 acres is not a real large lot. There are
Yes,
a
sir.
lot of lots that are now zoned LDR that are over 3 acres. Really.
That's right, Mr. Hildbrand, and that's something that internally we have discussed over the last month or so, particularly since Mr. Warren presented this subdivision. It brought a lot of things to light. And I would note that, a lot of municipalities do not put a cap on the lot size of their largest residential zone. And so that's something that the department is working with our attorneys to determine what's the best step forward. Again, not specifically with this application, but with our residential zonings. Why? We have to ask the question, why? Why was that capped at 2 acres? And should we amend that? And so I do believe we'll probably have something for you in the next couple of months to at least start debating a specific plan.
I will, when all of this started up, I looked online, and some municipalities have what they call estate zones. And those were lots that were the 2 to 5 or 10 acre. And they had that opposed to something that was agricultural because they didn't want these big fancy subdivisions and then somebody bringing a horse and putting a house, a horse or other livestock on those properties. So they had estate zones.
Sure. Well, look, I think
So-
this application tonight was a prime example of that. I didn't hear anyone on this committee say they were opposed to what Mr. Warren's trying to do. What I heard was that you had concerns about what could potentially go into an agriculture area. So that poses
Exactly.
the question, why do we not have a residential zone that exceeds 2 acres? So I think, yes,
Exactly.
Mr. Hildenbrand, I think that we will absolutely continue to explore that and try to adjust that.
And
What's the date on that next session, on that work session?
The February 28th on the work session, and then March 7th.
Okay.
So we do have a meeting on the 28th.
We have one scheduled. We'll have I think the deadline may have already passed.
You know, we may need to meet with our council regarding
Yeah.
the medical marijuana and the amendments.
And
to
we
the
may
law.
have this, this one may be ready by then, it's a possibility. We'll keep you
You'll let us
posted
know.
on it.
Sure, thank you.
But I think this is a good example also, too, of the need to begin thinking about what we want to do in our comprehensive plan, next comprehensive plan. A lot has changed since 2008. This is 2025 is the plan that we've got in place. And when you consider, that there are only so many acres within the city limits and how best to use them and allowing it to be developer-friendly and also provide the housing that we need. There may be several different angles on even smaller density that could provide affordable housing in our area. But those are some of the kind of things that go into the comprehensive plan. I think it's good that we're facing these things now and thinking about it, and especially trying to be proactive and looking at ways to meet both of those needs. So anyway, that's all I.
Thank you all. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
So we have Patty and Leslie. Everybody approve? Raise your right hand. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.